All right, so moving onward to our next session, the role of CFOs in driving sustainability, exploring ESG, environmental, social, and governance as a strategic imperative for financial leaders. Introducing our thought leader, Mr. Jogendra Singh, President of Finance at Hero Corporate Services Private Limited. Mr. Jogendra Singh is a seasoned finance leader with expertise in greenfield projects, manufacturing, and process improvement for transparency in business activities, seeking senior financial roles in reputable organizations. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Jogendra Singh?
Okay, good. Is everyone awake? I hope. So how do I know everyone is awake? Can somebody just raise your hand? Everybody raise his hands. Yes! Oh, yes. Good. Afternoon sessions are like this, you know. Very important topic, 15 minutes, I'll just rush through it. But this is something, as I talked about, when I was on the panel, that this is ESG or sustainability is the new kid on the block. The awareness about this is still very low. But this is something which is inevitable. This is something which at one point in time used to be in the alleys of activists when they would go to World Economic Forums and all that, then at that point in time, people will talk about sustainability, environment, etc. But from there, I think it has come to the mainstream. And this mainstream, I think it is everybody has to understand that this is a question which is for survival, survival of business, survival of mankind. ESG, that we talk about. So, before I start on this topic, I want to just take you back some 10,000 years. Some of you might have seen this, but I really want to take you back where we were as far as Indian society is concerned. I'll give you a historical perspective. All of us have heard about this, Mata Bhumi Putroham Prithivyaha. Earth is my mother and I'm a son. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, about 600 plus years ago said, Pavan Guru, Pani Pita, Mata Dharat Mahat. So what are we talking about? In environment part of ESG, E is environment. So what are we talking about? We are talking about earth, we're talking about air, we're talking about water. And what are we doing about it? How are we treating these very precious resources? And how the world is really going to extremes, extreme weather, extreme, you all seen this year it is predicted that in India the summer is going to be pretty extreme. And we have seen what does that mean. We have seen extreme floods coming in many parts of the world. So this is exactly what we're doing. But this is something where we have been there and we had looked at what kind of, I'll give you an example from Chanakya. Chanakya talked about that there would be a fine, a graduated degree of fine if you cut a tree. If you cut a tree which is less than 1 year old, then the fine is so many pan that they used to say. And so on. It would go up as you go up with the age of this. So this is something where we have been very, very conscious of, but somewhere in our race to profiteering, we forgot about this. So today we have come back to the same thing, same roots, where we talk about people, profit, purpose. It's never only profit. So it has to be people, profit, purpose. Second part of ESG, S, is very important again, society, social. How do we live together as a community? I again quote, from Rigved, it says, Sangachadvam samvadadvam samvo manansi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanjanana upasate. That means, all of us come together, walk together, understand each other, and do as we are supposed to be doing, right? Or this is something which is very famous. We talk about one world, one family. We had in G20, we were talking about it, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So this is exactly, what it said. Ayam nijaya paroveti gananalag chetasam udar charatanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This entire world is one family. So that's what we are talking about as far as S part of social is concerned. And then again, I go back to Chanakya Niti in terms of governance. We talk about a taxation system, a governance system at that point in time where it says, Balishad bhagam udhratya rapasya rakshataha praja. Give me 16% of your money, of your income, and the king will take care of its praja. So 16%, sir, I'll be very happy to do that. Today we pay 40%, right? So there are governance systems which were, in place at that point in time. So coming back from that kind of background, now we come to, this is World Economic Forum report, risk report 2024. And in 2024 risk report talks about in 2 years, what are going to be the risks, and in 10 years, what are going to be the risks. In 2 years, we're talking about misinformation and disinformation, especially coming out of AI, deep fakes, especially during, these days, election times, you really see an accentuated part of that fact. Extreme weather events. And if you go back 10 years, go further 10 years, then extreme weather events would be one of the major, the top risk which is there. So this is something which has to be, we have to really think about all the risk categories, whether economic, environmental, geopolitical. Today, geopolitical is a big risk. We're talking about whether it was Ukraine war or whether it is, the Israel war, Gaza war, or the kind of mass migration that is taking place from Africa or from other countries to Europe and US. So you have to really see how do we take care of these risks and whether we are ready for that. So we talk about environment, social, and governance, and different parts. I have, you have seen. Today there is a huge amount of interest, especially in the investor community, and they're talking about that we would like to invest only if you are ESG compliant. Why are they asking, whether you are ESG compliant or not? Because business is about being there in the long term. So if it is an existential threat, if environment or society or governance, I'm sure whenever we put our money into even in the stock market, you would like to really look at at least the governance part of it. You look at whether the governance of this company is good or not. If it is not, unless you are a trader, you don't put your money. If it is your long-term money, you would like to see the strength of the company. Where the strength of the company comes from? The strength of the company would come from the financials, the governance, okay, and the promoters. So this is what you're looking at. So investors, especially today, are really looking at these the ESG compliance, whether it is, and this is something where you look at the supply chain reliability, and they said 79% of the investors cited ethical parameters and the values are very, very important when they want to invest, or even 70. So this was a State Street Advisors report in US. 78% cited positive environmental or social impacts. So it's a very important thing. As we said, this has become an existential threat to the community. Now the next thing, we talk about as CFOs, what exactly are you looking at, what you should be looking at. So you should be looking at whether your corporate strategies are aligned with the ESG goals or not. And there are guidance available. UN has come up with the SDGs or strategic development goals. Look at all these kind of goals and whether you are aligned, your strategy is aligned with that or not. I think that is very important. You look whether your products and services are looking at that direction. So today there is so much of greenwashing. So we talk about greenwashing in this context, And what is greenwashing? Greenwashing is, I'm claiming a product to do something which it does not. So it's a false claim. Again, I see these days there is a lot of, there's a movement I saw coming up, read the label. So whether, you are exactly doing what you are claiming to be. I think that is something which is extremely important today. You look at your products, your services, your financial track record. We're looking at whether we can look at new innovative ways to reduce water consumption, to reduce environmental impact in kind of pollution, etc. So you have a factory that produces some kind of waste. How do you treat that waste? I think today that is very important. And whether that can be used, so the mindset has to be changed, whether employing this, you look at it as a cost or look at it as a long-term profit. Whatever is coming out of it in the long term, of course, one-time cost for this is very heavy. So that is the reason why there is a huge amount of reluctance, on this topic. You look at, of course, as far as CFOs are concerned, you have to do an execution credibility has to be there. And primarily, the shareholders have to be, the boards have to understand that this is an item which has to be there compulsorily in the board agenda. Of course, we talked about what can be done. So there's a huge amount of reporting now. Now, as far as CFOs are concerned, you have to really see what kind of reporting is to be done. And there are multiple, all around the world. The most important of them is GRI, which was the most acceptable reporting standard in the world. And based on that, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India came up with BRSR. Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. So for some companies, this is compulsory now, over 1,000 crore. And you have to really show what is your net zero target. In fact, in UK, it has been made compulsory for some group of companies, the top group of companies, to declare their net zero target. India has, as a country, adopted 2070 as the net zero target, but I know a lot of companies which have already talking about 2030 or 2035 or 2040 as the net zero. We in our group are setting up an art and culture center, in Delhi, in Vasant Kunj. It's called the Bridge. And from the day one, we are saying that it has to be water positive. We are not even talking about zero. So we met a gentleman, William McDonough. He has written a book, and the book is very interesting. It's called From Cradle to Cradle. So it's not cradle to grave, please understand. So cradle to cradle is exactly what we call the circular economy. So whatever is your, nothing gets waste. The waste has to be used. So this is what exactly is circular economy, and through this, can we be water positive or not? I think that is what is very important. So BRSR talks about three sections. Currently, we're talking about general disclosures, where we talk about different information about the company, product, management, etc. And then the major principles, and then you have principle-wise performance. So there are 9 key principles which talk about transparency, which talk about your environment, and so on. So there are 9 principles. For each principle, what is your performance and what is your leadership indicators? So primarily the indicators, we are all numbers people at the end of the day, and how do we bring these numbers to this is something which we have to really look at. But what I see, one, there is a very little awareness amongst people about this particular subject, and 2, the data, the quality of data, availability of data is very, very low when you talk about, so you talk about maybe environment, you would be able to show what kind of pollution you are doing or what kind of, things you have. But how do you quantify your commitment to the well-being of stakeholders? And these stakeholders are not only you and your employees, your vendors. So how do you go to them? And how do you go to their vendors? So this entire value chain, how do you cover it? It becomes very, very difficult. This computation is absolutely, something that you have to really see. And of course, very few companies are doing it, so therefore, there's a lack of data which is available as well. I think the next thing is, how do we really, so what are the KPIs? How do you set KPIs? So KPIs for each of these categories, these are some of these KPIs. The question would be, how do you really look at, how do you calculate this? So this part, probably you can do it, but the governance related ethics, accountability, governance, leadership initiatives, how do you calculate? I mean, this is something, but anything, we know anything that is not measured cannot be controlled. So that's something you have to really see. I have given some, program on how do you implement it. So you set overall goals, you create a budget, you evaluate opportunities, construct a framework, building a team, and then, check your progress and promote your performance. I mean, that is step-by-step approach how you can really go there. But these are only directional. When you get into it, you'll have to very clearly see what is the data that I'm looking at, what is the quality of data that I'm talking about. So all of that has to be done. And what comes next is, of course, the reporting is going to be expanded. So BRSR is only the starting. Some companies have already started, talking about very detailed sustainability reports. So how do you create those sustainability reports? How do you create the competence within the organizations who understand, who can calculate? So you'll have to start working this out from today, because next few years, today it is applicable to companies which are, large companies, so to say. It will become compulsory. Maybe MSME may take a little more time, but other than that, all companies, whether it is product company or service company, will have to make a sustainability report, absolutely. Sustainable focused finance, I think we already heard a hearing about green finance. So some part of green finance is already in the domain, but it'll go up, so which is be good. More importantly, of course, the convergence of framework would be there, and there is a technology now getting available to create this kind of reporting. But I think most important in this entire chain is that you understand the topic, you have the mindset to accept that this is not a cost, but an investment. And once we have that, I think it is very, very clear that we don't have any other way out but to accept and adopt and adapt to this ESG. At the end of the day, this is an existential question, as I said. So let's do it. Thank you very much. So if there are maybe one or two questions I can take. The time is up, it's showing, but maybe one question if somebody has.
Only one question, please.
Do I have a question? So it's very good. When there is no question, तो क्या होता है? दो बातें होती हैं. So one is that I have been so lucid that you understood everything. And second thing is nobody understood anything. So then there are questions. But good. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for delivering a crystal clear session.